Hey, what is up, mortals? It is TCCrew here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 2 of season 1 of What If Izuku Had 3 Wishes. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So we begin. All Might's jaw hung open as he looked at the beach. 10 months and several tons of trash later, Izuku stood on the last pile of junk he had gathered. Even if it wasn't going to take one for all into the exam, the teacher could tell that the boy could have used it, even if it could have caused damage. His apprentice let out a scream of triumph as All Might simply exclaimed,
Oh my goodness!
Before he quickly had to leap forward and catch Izuku, who had fallen off of the trash pile due to exhaustion. The foolish kid kept overworking himself, but All Might was still proud, and really happier than ever. Ever since Izuku had healed his injury through the use of the genie, All Might had put his returned strength to good use, and he'd done some more interviews too, with no time limit to worry about. Could you fault him? He was probably an entertainer in a past life. For now though, he needed to be a medic and make sure Midoriya hadn't accidentally hurt himself. Luckily he hadn't, though he had forgotten to drink water. Drink water. Do it. But with the dawn slowly encroaching and the time of the test slowly approaching, All Might sent Izuku home to get ready, though he didn't accompany him. Beyond the fact that Inko scared him, his restored health made it a little easier to see him as All Might when he wasn't fully buffed up. Plus, he had to meet with Nezu. He'd been avoiding the mouse bear shrew thing. He wasn't really sure how to explain his newfound health, absence of injury, and a real damn genie to the mongoose. Nor did he really know how Nezu would respond to the fact that basically infinite power was in the hands of a 13, nearly 14-year-old. He knew Aizawa would probably just huff, call it stupid, and then either drink more coffee, take a nap, or both plus juice. The other teachers would likely just get confused and ask Izuku to wish for stuff for them. All Might didn't really want to think what Midnight would do with ultimate power. Whatever the case, he was the one who asked to meet Nezu before the exam, and it would be very bad etiquette if he was late for something he requested. So All Might buffed up to his full hero form and leaped in the direction of UA. He was, of course, late. All Might, on the way to UA, had stopped to thwart several crimes or just give warnings, mostly to a couple of people who ended up speeding and one mugger. But it still delayed him. The number one hero walked into the office of someone who was arguably one of the most powerful, vindictive people in all of Japan. So All Might knew something was off the moment he stepped in to find the office empty.
Nezu, are you here?
Oh, All Might, you finally arrived. One moment.
The high-pitched voice of the principal was seemingly coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. All Might decided it would probably be prudent to take a seat. He should have expected it when the rat popped out from behind his chair holding a teapot and a plate of biscuits.
How do you even do that?
A magician never reveals his secrets, and chairs are surprisingly spacious.
Alright.
But honestly, you're surprised about my habits? I should be the one surprised here. Look at yourself.
Oh, yes, I got better.
Didn't make you less of an idiot, it would seem.
No.
I've been aware of the changes in your health for a little while now. Both myself and Jiho do pay attention to the news. I'm surprised your old mentor hasn't wrung my phone off the hook. Although he may just be waiting to chew your ear off, the increase in your time fighting crime has not gone unnoticed. You were able to do a lot with only 5 hours before, but it's easy to see the differences over 10 months.
Yes, it's been very interesting over the past little while.
Do tell.
So All Might did. If there was anyone to trust with this information, no matter his reaction to it, Nezu was the one. All Might went over the slime villain meeting Izuku, the meeting with the genie, and subsequent months, including the aftermath. According to what Izuku told him, Inko had fretted over his new quirk and rushed him to a specialized quirk center, where they apparently just decided to call him a late bloomer or blame on stockpiling. After all, no one was going to suspect a damn genie, and without them calling in a lie detector quirk, they wouldn't suspect a thing. To say Nezu was curious would be an understatement. He had never heard of such a thing. It certainly wasn't yet in the realm of quirks. But, of course, he had a concern.
Why none of the big wishes?
How do you mean?
The big wishes, Toshinori. World peace, End of poverty. No more villains. The way you have described it, it sounds like you have found essentially omniscient entity. I would think you, of all people, would appreciate an end to villains. It may uproot society for a time, but it would likely benefit us all in the long run. Not to mention the fact that you've taken unlimited power and left it with a child.
I'm not really sure what to say. I got caught up in the moment when I was healed. I truly, despite the moral contrary, I would deprive a child of the chance to end his torment in a way that uplifts himself and those around him. Midoriya will become a great hero.
And he wouldn't need to be if there were no villains. The hero force, as it is now, would be too large to justify for firefighting and general police work. Even natural disasters wouldn't require all of our pros at once. Would it not simply be better if we didn't need them?
And if he couldn't change humanity on such a fundamental level?
If the genie cannot change crime and villainy as a product of circumstance, then they are a hypocrite or limited. The capabilities of a mystical creature I have only just learned the existence of, or surprisingly, not in question here. It is the matter of the fact that you didn't even ask if it could be done.
Nezu steeply ate his toe beans as he thought on the irrational being that was his friend.
I am not going to fault the child for making a choice that benefits them. If I did that, I would be condemning several billion people. I am not over condemning selfishness, a measure of which we all need for satisfaction and our own health. I am simply attempting to ascertain why you chose not to wish for such an outcome.
Well, I counseled Izuku to save the third wish for a time it could possibly be useful. A time where it could be desperately needed. A life-threatening or debilitating injury, a person in need, or a massive crisis. Our world is our world. We don't always think about changing it, especially not when it goes well for us.
I can accept that, but I want to meet this genie, determine its capabilities, the extent of its abilities. They certainly sound like information would be given freely.
That won't be a problem. In fact, I bet Izuku will ask for your autograph.
He does sound like a human I potentially like.
An alarm drilled on Nezu's desk, alerting the two that the entrance exam time was approaching. Wasting no time, Nezu climbed onto the desk and hopped onto All Might's shoulder as he stood, and the two moved quickly towards the examination hall, just barely missing the view out Nezu's window of a green-haired boy being saved from tripping by a brown-haired girl. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track, securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the web, you can also expand the research of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2 or 3 or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming services with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years at $3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time. And thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Izuku stood in front of the massive gates to UA's exam battle center B, a full city filled with robots designed to be destroyed to assess combat prowess, or at least that was how it sounded. However, Izuku had been thinking about the actual objective they'd been told of. On the surface, it was simple: destroy robots and don't attack other examinees while trying to get the best score possible. It was oddly illogical. A test designed entirely for combat type or flashy quirks was counterproductive, really. How could heroes like Sir Night-Eye or Mandalay get past a test like this? In Izuku's head, there were 2 options that would lead non-combative types past. Either the robots were fragile enough to break when the right spot was hit, or there was a second way to get points in the exam. Izuku was jolted from his thoughts by a slight bump from another examinee and walked a couple of steps before something caught his eye. The brown-haired girl who had saved him outside the building. She looked like she was trying to swallow her nerves. Izuku decided he was going to go over to see if he could help. But unfortunately for him, he was stopped by a certain large blue-haired examinee, one who Izuku had only just encountered back during the exam's explanation. The one who had decided to call out his mumbling in particular from halfway across a crowded auditorium. The one who was now accusing him of intending to distract the brown-haired girl and of being there to distract everyone from the exam. I guess he wasn't really aware that he was in fact the one making a scene and distracting everyone. Well, there wasn't exactly much time to react, because about then was when President Mike decided to scream the word, "Go!" and started the exam with no countdown, because there was no countdown in a real battle. Izuku reacted quickly this time, heading forward just before the rest of the crowd preceded the order. The blue-haired boy overtook him though. Speed quirks are really something. But so it began, several dozen young teens dashing into a giant fake city to fight fake killer robots, and Izuku had just reached his first one. A one-point robot that was coming straight at him with a metal fist aiming straight at his face. The boy resisted the urge to activate his quirk immediately when faced with the aggressive robot. He was going to need it. So he ducked under the attempted strike and immediately attempted a hit on his own. Unfortunately, being reminded that metal, in fact, not soft. So now Izuku was fighting a robot, and his hand hurt. This was going well. And this also begged the question, how was Izuku supposed to beat up the robots now? Well, for one thing, he remembered that his feet exist. Izuku started maneuvering around the robot, weaving through its strikes and testing for weaknesses in its armor by using his feet and palms to check for weak and hollow points. He found one where the small of the back would be on a person. To clarify, Izuku just kicked the robot's spine in. Hooray! The shaped metal caved with a crinkle and clang as the bot shot down. Victory! Now do it again. Izuku did, in fact, do it again, several times. Over the course of the first 3 minutes, Izuku had gotten quite a few kills under his belt, but whether it was enough to pass was anyone's guess. Izuku did get distracted a lot, specifically by other examinees who ended up needing help. Izuku, being the reckless altruist that he is, never once questioned heading in to help any examinees he saw get cornered or become a near victim to the debris of all the fighting. Once or twice he activated his quirk, usually in response to a three-pointer, so that he could negate the damage from the bot's missiles. It came in especially handy during a moment when Izuku stepped in to help a blond boy clutching his stomach. He was about to be hit with a volley from a three-pointer as Izuku activated the extension aspect of his quirk, Antagonist, protecting himself and the boy before retracting the bubble and rushing the robot. True to how the genie described the quirk, no attack from the robot was able to land. Izuku dispatched the three-pointer before checking on the boy, who basically just thanked Izuku and ran off to get more points. The robot slaughter continued for several more minutes, by which time Izuku found himself back at the main area. Although he was slightly out of breath, he was still splitting his attention between helping anyone he saw needed it. Usually, he either intercepted a problematic bot or tackled another examiner out of the way of a bad hit. Izuku's point count was at a couple dozen or so, but he'd lost track at some point in the chaos. He heard nearby contestants calling out counts in the high 30s and 40s. He wasn't sure if he rivaled that. Izuku's contemplation on his progress took a back seat, however, once the life of President Mike called out the 2-minute mark and the ground started shaking while building cracked. Looking in the direction of the noises and tremors, Izuku saw a sight that was frankly terrifying. A robot the size of a skyscraper. Izuku was frozen in awe and terror for a moment. Simply staring at the other examiners, began fleeing in terror, the abrasive, blue-haired boy among them. Izuku retained his senses, turning to join them before he heard a small cry for help. The brown-haired girl from earlier was trapped under a piece of rubble that had apparently fallen from the building next to her. She was also in the direct path of the massive machine. Izuku's leg moved on their own. He quickly dashed to the trapped girl and attempted to get the slab of reinforced concrete off her. He managed to make enough room for the girl to remove her trapped leg, but unfortunately it seemed sprained. A lucky outcome, all things considered. Less lucky was the massive metal hand aiming to crush the two examinees. They didn't have the time to move, and there was still at least a minute and a half left in the exam.
I hope I have enough time. Either way, I'll have to do it.
Izuku set the 0-point robot, for that was the only thing he could be, as his quirk's target. His previous shield extensions had only lasted a couple seconds, not enough to trigger the recharge. He'd be functionally quirkless for 5 minutes after this one, though. Once more, the green energy shield sprung to life, enveloping the area around the two. The large hand of the zero-pointer crushed into it, electricity arcing around the contact. The robot withdrew the limb and hit the shield 2 more times, attempting to break it, but with no success. It only had time to attempt a couple more times before Prison Mike's voice rang out, declaring the exam over. Robot shut down immediately afterwards. Izuku dropped the shield, and a wave of exhaustion hit him. It was an odd feeling having his quirk recharge. He could only describe it as a flow of energy into what he assumed was the quirk's reservoir.
That was amazing!
Oh right, he just saved the girl.
Thanks? I thought I was going to end up a lot worse than I did. This is the first time I've ever seen a force field quirk. I've heard of them before, but they're really rare.
The girl tried to get up off of the ground, but winced and fell back down. Izuku promptly went over and helped her up, allowing her to take weight off of her sprained ankle.
Thank you. I'm Ochaka Uraraka. What's your name? I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Uraraka.
Oh dear, what do we have here?
The two's introductions were interrupted by an old lady with a syringe or a cane and a stylized doctor's outfit.
Here, let me fix you up.
Ah, the youthful heroine of UA Recovery Girl. The only reason the school can handle such exams as this one.
The boy who could shoot lasers from earlier exclaimed his appreciation for the essential worker dramatically as she used her quirk to literally kiss Uraraka's wound better. Izuku was imploding from the excitement of seeing such a classic hero in close proximity, which then, coupled with the adrenaline from the fights leaving his system, meant he was getting quite tired. Though not as tired as Uraraka, who had what was left of her stamina drained by Recovery Girl's quirk in order to heal.
The fatigue is always the worst part after these exams for most. I'm sure my staff will have several worse injuries waiting for me back at the infirmary. In fact, I'm quite sure of it. Let's get you over to the buses. All of you hawkers get over there too.
At her command, the examinees all turned to the shuttle buses that had brought them to the fake cities in the first place, the ones that now brought them back to the main campus of the school. Izuku and Uraraka had spent the bus ride talking, and had exchanged numbers as well. Neither noticed the tall blue-haired boy periodically glancing at Izuku while in thought. The two parted ways once they reached the front gate, each heading a different direction this time, but both going home to rest and wait for the results of the exam. Izuku in particular leading a very proud mentor to debate with the other judges on point counts. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye, and have a divine day.